I just got back. Had a meeting with the cell this morning.
For how long?
Hey?
How long was that meeting?
Oh, let's see, 10 o'clock till 11 o'clock or so, 12 o'clock. And then I had to grab some tarps that were blowing all over the place.
Yeah, it's been windy.
What time is it now?
It's 1:38, almost 2.
Yeah. So I got a tent up.
You set it up?
I did it by myself because Jennifer sent me the video.
Okay.
And I looked at the video, and that was Friday, and it was raining. And I don't know if you know what it's like to try to work outside when it's raining and you wear glasses.
Yeah, that's not fun. Not fun.
So, and putting up a tent with the wind and the rain was not fun, but I got it done.
Yeah, that's a positive.
Well, there were people who said they'd be here on Wednesday, but then on Wednesday, the damn thing didn't arrive until 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 4, somewhere in there, so it was too late.
There's like a whole thing behind that, like they held it.
They held it on purpose.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. They claimed it was too heavy at first, and then they admitted that there was it had come from California, so it crossed the border, and they wanted $24.48 from a guy who bought it and bought the heater and lives in Scotland. So. They are the worst government in the entire world. Right now, we're investigating their role, and
which government?
Government sent me papers demonstrating that at least at their level of the Canadian government collecting and paying out what do they call it? Retirement benefit, did not ask for any money. Claim that the claim that was made in 2003 and backdated has been shut down with a notice not to attempt to claim that it wasn't legal. It was the government coming into power, which was liberals, would not have done it, but the government that was in power did, and then backdated it to a time when the liberals were in power, so they would take the blame. But they showed me that no deductions have ever been made from it, and I've warned them that any deduction following my demise is twice what it is before, and if they don't remove the thing from the the documents that were done and deleted completely, their penalty is 1,000 years in the waiting line, 2,000 if I've died. And in the waiting line, there's a bridge that rises that allows people to see how well off they would be if they were in paradise compared to just waiting in line, which is not hell, but it's certainly not paradise. And once they come off the line, they have to go into the courtroom, sit in the audience, let everybody in the audience go through that got there ahead of them, and then have their own trial, and then they don't know whether or not they'd be sentenced to the Pacific or paradise. But they won't know for at least 1,000 years if they don't take the documents off and return the money. And that's a division that's provincial called Service Canada. So they are the ones that put in the poverty surplus. If your pension doesn't meet a certain level, then they have to meet it. And for me, it's been deducted, that $900 has been deducted for 5 months now. So that's $4,500, 4,500 years. Is Dana on yet?
No, I don't think so. He would say something.
Yeah.
He should be on. So.
I'll have to repeat myself.
That's crooks, criminals, right?
Yeah.
That's what they do. They steal. Or predators, right? I remember we were discussing predators years ago.
Yeah.
That they take and they go somewhere else with it, you know.
Yeah. And when I got to the bank in June and I saw this on the screen was totally different from what I normally would see. And I stepped back and the cell stood in front of me and took a picture of the screen and sent it to Antarctica. And they did a search on it, and it came out to be a bank in Chicago called the Private Bank. And when we looked at who owned the Private Bank, it's CIBC, Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, my bank in Kemptville, and the important word in there is Imperial Bank. Imperial means royal, so it's basically linked to England's MI6. So now we're down to two possibilities. Service Canada, which is provincial, and Imperial Bank of Canada, which is foreign and English.
So this private bank, I'm looking it up right now. It says Private Bank, Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah. Owned by CIBC.
The Private Bank. Oh, no, that's not it. Oh, okay. It says CIBC US Online. Management. Is this the one? Does it say 120 South LaSalle Street? Is that it?
Well, there's only one in Chicago, I think, and it's linked to my bank in Kemptville.
It's called the Private Bank, and we know Chicago.
Yeah.
Mafia factory.
Yeah.
Criminal.
It's where they launder money.
Mm.
They steal from seniors' pensions and launder it in a place near Mississauga and transfer it to Chicago and then on to the UN and for use by the bureaucrats at the UN, which are mostly Nordic places like Sweden and northern Germany and Finland.
Like what criminal activity do you think like the Swedes and stuff? Because it's like famous that people use offshore accounts and.
Well, you got to remember that entire Nordic group is between the two biggest countries in the world. And they control Greenland as well. Mm. So you got Russia on one side, you got Canada on the other. And the only break is Alaska that has a panhandle with a city named after a Russian city. And you had a woman from there run for president or vice president some time ago.
Oh, Sarah Palin?
Hey?
No, I'm sorry, I'm thinking the lady.
Say that again?
I said Sarah Palin, but I think...
Yeah, Sarah Palin.
Oh, okay.
Where's she come from?
I thought it was like Alaska or something.
Yeah, she's from Alaska, but in the panhandle there. Russian name.
Siberia? No.
No, it's linked to my trees out in front. There, the spruce.
I don't know.
49 spruce. They're named after the town she comes from. Just look up Sarah Palin place of birth or
Sarah Palin
or member of the House or something.
Place
candidate for president.
Sarah Palin place of birth. Oh no, that's not right. It says she was born in Sandpoint, Idaho. Wow.
She may have been born there, but she lived in Alaska.
Okay,
What's the town right in the middle of that peninsula that comes down British Columbia?
Well, it says here she was elected to Wasilla City Council. No,
that's not the name. I keep forgetting names that I've said a million times before.
That happens to me too, Glenn. I think it may be linked to diet.
Yeah.
If you're not getting enough vegetables, vitamins in your diet.
I'm getting too many vegetables, not enough meat.
Oh, that's what happened? I'm trying to eat more vegetables these days. I don't know.
Jennifer would know.
Yeah, she knows.
She knows everything.
Yeah. So how with this tent? How does it fit your needs? Is it sufficient? I mean, I know a house is always a lot better, but
well, right now, what I'm trying to figure out is what is the proper amount of wood to put into at the beginning so that it doesn't get too hot. Because right now it's leaning on the edge of too hot on on the stove's thermometer.
That's what the thermometer says for you?
Well, it's about almost on the line going into too hot. Now, all I've put in it is one piece of wood on top of some cells, not cells, what do you call them, wood pellets.
Uh-huh. Wood pellet chips, you mean? Like what chips?
Yeah, I put a handful of wood pellet chips and a log on it, and then a little bit of starter, and lit it up. And on my indoor thermometer, it says 33 degrees Fahrenheit. No, 33 degrees centigrade. 80, 90 some degrees Fahrenheit. So obviously, I got to put in
less wood,
either no pellets or a smaller piece of wood.
Because I'm thinking if you're putting a log, that's pretty. I don't know how thick the logs. Are you putting like half a log? Because are you chopping them in half?
I'm not chopping it. I bought it as firewood.
What happened to all that wood that you chopped in the past?
You have to hold it for 2 years after cutting it so that it evaporates, and then you can use it for deliveries to customer. And a cord of wood, there's the phony cord and the real cord. The phony cord is called a face cord, and a real cord has 3 piles, one next to the other, deep, and it costs $300, whereas a face cord is a third of that, and it costs $100 once because they won't deliver it twice. They deliver it once so you can test their wood. And then when you buy, you have to buy it by cord, which is $300.
Wow, this is something I didn't think about. Now you got to pay for wood?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have to pay for wood if I had somebody helping me cut wood while I'm doing the rest of the work. But right now, that's not possible. Somebody has to come with a chainsaw because my 2 chainsaws died over the last 5 years, and cut up pieces of wood to the size that can be used inside the furnace. I got a shortening day when daylight diminishes, rain on my glasses, and only an axe to cut wood while I have to take care of everything else.
Oh, Dana's on, by the way.
Oh, hi, Dana.
Hey, Glenn.
Do you want me to start over?
No, I've been on for a few minutes since the topic. But.
Okay, good. You're efficient.
Yes.
So now I guess we could work on finding.
How much a piece of wood costs when you pay for it at $300 a cord? One piece is 44 cents.
Oh.
How big is that piece, though?
Well, they are all about the same size. Some a little thinner than others, but the length is all the same. So.
All right, so you think you could use like a pool of fund together for wood?
That would not be a bad idea. Until we have somebody here who can cut the wood because we certainly have plenty of wood, but it's a matter of somebody, basically two people, one on a tractor with a trailer, the other one cutting the pieces and throwing it in the trailer, and then the trailer driving back while the guy continues to cut. And when it gets too hot, I get a beep like that from a device that Jennifer sent me. And it says, open the door.
Oh, that's pretty nifty. That's pretty useful.
Yeah.
That was a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you'll really see, once it's really cold out there and how quickly the heat dissipates, because it's going to be radiating.
Yeah, it's going to be different once it gets really cold.
Yeah.
Man.
The other thing I need is 2 pillows.
2 pillows?
I put a bed in, and I have specialized stuff that goes on top of the spring, and then I have blankets on top of that, and a sleeping bag from my friend in Scotland, and the stove came from him and her as well. So I need 2 pillows and wood, firewood.
2 pillows and firewood, okay.
And I don't want rubberized pillows if possible, because they basically are, what would you call them, fire hazards.
I saw a pillow the other day when I was actually shopping for a mattress and bed. I saw memory foam pillows where it's like the foam has it's like a different texture, and it's in a case, and you could wash the case and put the pillow back
that would
in.
be great.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I'll go look into that. I'll go over there.
I don't know how expensive pillows are.
These are like 100 a pillow.
Huh.
But they're comfortable,
Sounds like too much.
No, but that would be you're living in a tent, so might as well be comfortable,
Yeah.
Yeah, I could save up and get that. And I don't know about the wood. I guess whoever, me or Dana, whoever, could just send you those money orders, and you could just buy the wood. Right?
Yeah.
It always seems like we're going. There always seems to be a connection to Scotland.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
When I saw the 2 groups of people who came on one day at the same time, they were both together. They didn't come together. It happened that way. One came from Scotland and one came from Brockville. In Canada, the last place I would expect to see anybody come and help me would be Brockville. And in Scotland, the last place was people who would come and help, and both groups did a fantastic job here. You can't prejudge even on the purgatory doorstep to hell. You always
is your phone moving? Are you moving? Because it seems like something keeps moving over your microphone.
I'm holding hot, so I'm trying.
It's kind of. Do that, Dana?
Yeah.
Can't really hear what he's saying. He's like he's busy moving around something.
What is this now?
Hello?
Yeah. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
The context is how much
You cut out. All I heard you say was how much wood, and then you sounded like you were far away.
and how much
Yeah, I can't hear you.
and I can't speak any louder.
Well, are you doing something? Or are you moving something? Are you working right now?
I'm lying on my back.
Uh-huh.
I have the base of the telephone on my chest, upper chest just below my chin. Now, how much do you move under those circumstances? I don't know.
I think maybe some of your clothes are touching the microphone.
Yeah, something keeps
Maybe
rubbing
flip
against
the phone over.
microphone.
The microphone on my phone is at the top of.
Oh, so
not
maybe.
even touching.
Well, I don't know. It's maybe can't be your hair.
Too hot.
You said the phone is too hot?
Could be. If it's not that, it's not whatever they're doing.
Usually when I hear that sound in the microphone, like when I'm talking or something, it's something rubbing up against the microphone, or like I don't know. It could be your finger, it could be your beard, it could be hair.
Have my hand on the supported facing out. If I lay it down, does it change any?
Now you sound clear.
Okay, so now the phone is laying down.
Okay.
Remember that.
All right.
Just below my chin.
Okay. Yeah.
So what is it that you don't know about how I'm living in the tent? I'll repeat here that in the morning I've been testing different amount of wood to start the fire. Mm-hmm. And I am putting a handful of wood pellets on the bottom of the stove, on which I add fire starter from the propane, not propane, but from the stove I have, not the stove, the other stoves I have. $24 plus tax, $28 a quart. So it's not gas, not going to blow up on me. And then I put a piece of wood on top of that from my firewood collection of last year. At that point, I take a match and drop it on the fire starter, and it starts heating in the wood pellets. And when it gets hot enough down there, it starts the fire in the piece of wood. All of that is directed by the amount of air entering the stove. The stove has a control that allows you to open up 4 holes in the door. If you want to limit the amount of heat, you can shut the thing down by a quarter or a half, 3/4, or all of it. If you shut it all, the smoke can't make it up the chimney because it doesn't have any air pushing it, and the alarm will go off. So you got to make sure that those holes are either open completely or closed no more than half. When they are operating properly, they burn together, and at this stage of the game, it's too hot. It goes on my thermometers, my furnace thermometer goes up, and it's right on the line, and it's 33 degrees Fahrenheit inside here, 700 degrees Fahrenheit on the thermometer. So what do? Do I cut back on the wood chips, or do I cut back on the wood itself? And right now I've tried 3 pieces of wood, 2 pieces of wood, 1 piece of wood. And so now I'm left with no pieces of wood. So I can't do anything until it cools down to 0, and then try again tomorrow morning without wood or without pellets.
I would maybe, I don't know, maybe you could just put the wood in first, and then if it's too low, I guess you add the pellets incrementally.
It could be. I can try that tomorrow.
What about controlling the dampers on there?
Well, that's what I was talking about, the dampers and the controls to put air in so that it can go out the chimney where it has the damper, and it's wide open. So if I shut it, it's going to be hotter still.
So it's wide open and still overheating?
Yeah.
Now that thermometer, is it designed for your?
Especially for the stove.
Oh.
It's got a magnet on it, and you put it on the surface. I've got 2 of them, so I put one near the front and one near the chimney.
Okay. Now, you're able to cook your food in that thing? Or?
Yeah. I had breakfast on it yesterday. Now, all you have to do is put your food in a frying pan, which I have, or a fireproof, I don't know what they call it, glass-looking thing, and it heats it all up. Frying pan will fry eggs. If I'm using stuff out of a can, I would use the glass thing.
Oh, like a Pyrex type of thing.
Pyrex type thing. That's it. And if I'm using cans, usually a meal is 2 cans that I put together as one. One usually has the basic, chicken and turkey or beef or whatever meat. The other one has a more saucy or veggie type filling, and when I mix the two of them, I make the better meal than either one of them by themselves.
So you can buy like I guess like poultry. Can you buy stuff like that, or beef in the store? Does it have to be?
Well, I haven't bought any, but I've been given a steak, beef steak, by a taxi driver, and simply putting it on a sheet of aluminum foil on top of the surface of the stove, it acts like a frying pan, and it doesn't leak more than a little bit, contrary to the canned stuff. So it doesn't need the containment, and is easier to cut if it's on a piece of aluminum foil, because you're not ruining your pan while you're cutting it. Those are all things that I have never had to live before. Same thing with putting up stakes to hold a tent is usually done with 6-inch stakes, because you're putting it up and taking it down and putting it up and taking it down. But for me, it's putting it up, period, and has to survive what we've had over the last few days, the biggest wind gust that you can imagine. And what I got was 30-inch stakes, and replaced the 6-inch stakes, and nothing moves. But I only have a few of them, so on order is I think a dozen more, and by then I'll have the stakes all around the tent. There's 2 levels to staking for the tent. There's the base level, and then there's a middle level that pulls out the middle, gives you more space internally. So when the other stakes get here, I'll be able to stake the outside highest up links, and the tent, of course, is not budging as is, but that provides the eternal guarantee.
So like frozen food, like it's, how would you like defrost it? Like, you know?
Well, you just leave it in the tent when it's on normal, and it'll defrost. And chicken or cat food coming into the tent is not frozen, but being here is going to prevent it from freezing. So that was one of the major problems last year. Is you get a can, you open it up, it's frozen, won't come out of the can. So you know all the other cans are the same. So trying to go outdoors and light a fire in a stove outdoors took about an hour to an hour and a half. And then you had to put the cans that you were going to use that time, which to me is about 30 cans. You have to line them up on the stove and try to get them off before it burns or burns your fingers. in the rain, in the snow, in the wind, it's not the easiest thing to do for a guy 79 years old wearing glasses. So inside the tent, it means that all I have to do is put the case there. And when I need a new case, is come out from where the cats are, because the cats are in the house, pick up a case and bring it back to the house and feed them from that. It probably never will need to be put on the stove. So I'll only know how much space I have for stacking stuff when I put the next layer into the ground to hold the middle part further out, and then I'll know exactly what to do. But if I had helpers like the helpers I've had from you and I don't know who's listening, Gerd, Gerd and Danny.
Tom was a really good helper too.
You were a great help with the chicken coop.
Yeah,
if you remember.
Yeah.
And so was Danny with other things. And these people from Brockville and Scotland were both helped, one in bringing people here, another one in bringing food here. And then when the people came from Scotland, was not only bringing food, but also bringing hard labor. They spent, 3 or 4 days, 2 or 3 hours at a time digging, and that would have taken me until the snow falls, and then I would have ended up not being able to finish, because if it didn't snow till Christmas, I'd still be digging. And of course, the ADIFO needs that from the air for when they choose to land. They now have basically the 2 directives they need: a pole in the middle, 18 feet off the ground, so they know how to come down to 20 feet without going too far down. They have a 20-foot ladder, so they come down to 20 feet, and they, in order to position themselves east, west, north, and south, they have the circle, which won't be visible when it snows, but as soon as the weather clears up, what you have is a green interior and a brown circle, which is about a yard wide, the same size as the ADIFO, so it can come down right at the center of it, drop its ladder, either deliver something or pick up something, whether they be cats or people, bring them up, shut the gate. By the way, in case you don't remember, the word ADIFO is all direction flying saucer or flying object. It's like a flying saucer. Probably made in the Moho discontinuity and rising out of an extinct volcano, or optionally going back in time without the knowledge of anybody. Canada was the leading force in building flying machines, both in speed and in version, whether they be airplanes or flying saucer, ATIFOs, they call them. So I don't know where the one will come is from originally, but obviously one of those two places. And that's why people have seen what they call flying saucers, because if you're underground, you can't have an airplane because there's no runway. So whatever you have has to be round and rise and fall in a single place like an extinct volcano.
Yeah.
They have a big advantage that we don't have is, of course, they're not always visible. In order to see a member of the cell, you have to be approved by creation and the court, and then the cell on request, on its own request, can turn itself into the electromagnetic self, which we used to call a ghost.
Yeah.
So when people go looking for them, they can't see them. And when I ask why me, well, you heard the answer.
Yeah. So how did how was that visit from these guys from Scotland?
If I had visitors like New York, Brockville, and Scotland all the time, things that need to get done would get done much faster. But I have a hernia, and I'm going to be 79 in January, and there's a limit to my energy. Yeah. Although people say I look better than most people that are 50 or 60, I still have a lack of energy because of that hernia. The only way I can get back to normal, or as close to normal as a 78-year-old can be, is lying on my back, and the hernia is on the left-hand side of my penis, and then there's a bump that comes up on the right-hand side. And if I put some pressure on the left-hand side hernia, nothing happens. Can't feel any change whatsoever. But if I put pressure on the bump on the right side, eventually the bump, and I'm trying to do it right now, and it's happening. I can hear it gurgle a little bit, and that means gas is coming out of that area, leaving whatever causes the bump to drop back into its home slot underneath the area where I'm touching. So when that happens, then I can walk better. But I trying to do that in the transparent tent means that the cot is not always available because every time it rains, it picks up an inch or two of water on the bottom, and then you have to dump that and wait for it to dry before you can lie on it. So it last 3 years have been difficult because first while I was basically sleeping in a bed in the house where the ceiling fell on me, and then sometimes sleeping sitting up on the back seat of a car, which was half filled with whatever I needed to work with, so I could only do it seated. Now I have a choice of in the summer, spring, and fall, never turning the furnace on unless I'm cooking something, and lying on the bed on my back as I'm doing right now, getting rid of the bump, and then go back out to work. Or if it hasn't rained, lie down on the cot in the other tent, which basically is more practical if I'm going to be meeting people, because in the tent nobody can see me here. Although if they look for the chimney, I'm sure they'll find smoke going up in the wintertime. That basically is a hint that I might not be too far away.
Yeah.
One of the advantages of the heat in the tent, my coffee never goes cold.
Yeah.
Outside in 30 below, 10 minutes, you got to take it or leave it.
Yeah. Oh, so you're making coffee in there? That's cool.
Yeah. I used to make coffee outside, but it took an hour and a half to get there. You know, an hour for the stove to warm up and 25 minutes to half an hour for the coffee to heat up. When you're standing there waiting to see bubbles up the percolator, and it's either snowing, raining, or 30 below, it's tough.
Now that tent, it can handle winds and stuff like that?
Right now, with the spikes that I have in the ground, I would guarantee it with gusts of under hurricane. And once I get the rest of the spikes in the ground, I don't think a hurricane could move it. Well,
30. That's 30. So you good with blankets and stuff, or sleeping bag?
I got a sleeping bag from a taxi driver that I use as a base, and I got a sleeping bag from Scotland, which I've never seen the likes of. It is designed to be wide enough if I had to sleep all dressed, which right now I doubt. But if I had to, I could sleep all dressed in this. Right now, I could sleep undressed, lying on top of it. I don't have pillows. As it stands now, I'm using a roll of paper towels as the pillows.
Yeah, I'll try
And by
to.
the way, when the door is, if both doors are open, flies come in. So you have to remember, in the winter time, you don't need to worry about both the screen and the tent door being closed. You could leave the outside open and the tent open, and at least it would keep flies from being attracted to the heat. But I have a fly swatter.
That's a
And
lot of
right
energy
now
to use.
there are 3 flies inside.
They're still alive, flies? Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, they gotta live to make babies, who gotta live to make more babies, who gotta live to make babies, or they won't be here in the spring.
I thought they went like dormant or something. And
Hey, they lay a nest. I had a piece of beef in the bedroom.
oh yeah, they'll
And
go out.
I forgot all about it. And it was there for 3 days, and I remembered, and I picked it up, and it had all these little white things by the hundreds of thousands creeping along. Thank goodness I didn't wait another day, but I took, because what they were crawling in was a plastic plate I used to, or paper plate, to feed the cats, and picnic plates type of thing. And I picked up the plate and put it outdoors, so they froze to death. But imagine if I would have had a couple of 100,000 flies in the bedroom.
You'd be you'd have a lot of company who aren't paying rent.
Yeah. That house can never be used for anything but cats.
So that's where the cats are staying inside there, right?
Yeah.
And
I had 2 cats that went in and out, and one of them during the night I heard screaming, and I thought for sure it had died. I didn't see it for 2 days. And then I spotted it behind the house, and I grabbed it. And since then, her name is Mama Cat. She's given 2 litters of 6 kittens. I put her on my bed, and she's been there for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. And she's trying to get out now, so she must be feeling better. I don't want her to be out because obviously she had been bitten over the back spine down to the belly.
By another cat?
By what do you call that animal? Looks like a dog.
Coyote? No.
Coyote.
Yeah.
But the teeth didn't pierce. So any damage was internal, either to the ribs or to the soft spot under the belly. And every time I touch her, she'd yelp. So that's what happens to cats who live outdoors.
Oh, it happened outside. It didn't happen in the house.
Yeah, it happened outside.
Because the coyotes, they're not...
The other one who's outside has now got only one ear. So I don't know if it was in a fight with something else, but he lost an ear. The ear is still there, but kind of mushy and hanging over. So he still comes in and out of the house. And I had a black and white that never wanted to stay in the house, and as soon as it could get out, got out, and it would come up for something to eat only if I put on the back porch. wouldn't come into the house. So I put a plate there on the back porch. But about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, he disappeared. So maybe he was the lunch for the coyote that dropped Mama.
Maybe. Wow. I mean, the coyotes, they're not brazen enough to go in the house or anything, right? So.
No. They'll come to the backyard, but stay 15 feet away from the house.
Because I was thinking about that when you say you line up your meat outside. Wouldn't they try to steal it? Those type of, I know
Yeah.
Or the foxes were similar too, right? Those sit there and try to.
Yeah. Foxes have to take on small cats. Foxes aren't heavy enough, basically, to take on a full-grown cat. That's why he dropped it. So if he doesn't catch it and bite its throat or something right then and there, you can't drag it away. So you find spots in the back where a cat was caught, and in the summertime the grass is greener around the bones, so the energy has been absorbed into the grass. But in the wintertime, you can follow where the cat was dragged to, drug across the back, and eaten in a certain place because they can't basically lift it. Now, of course, you have the other problem is if you have cats outdoors, then there are litters born outdoors. And if the mama of the litter walks away to go get some food, which is usually a chipmunk or something like that, and another cat walks by, it has basically three choices. It can ignore the litter, it can grab kittens and eat them, or it can grab kittens and take them home. And it becomes its litter because it had a litter that didn't make it, so it steals somebody else's. Now, that's the same process used by a mountain lion. What do you call those black, has the word ant in it?
Panther?
Panther. Panther would have seen a child. It's probably over millions and billions of years would have killed it or ignored it, but at one stage of the game, it carried the child into the cave and allowed it to feed off of its nipple. They basically don't give the baby a choice. They kind of pull it in, and the baby strikes at the nipple shortly thereafter. And when the baby is old enough and able to walk, it can pick up things, leftovers in the cave, and chew on it. Probably wouldn't be able to eat much in that way. But then they make their way outside until they come across a goat, female goat that just had a litter, and by trapping it in some kind of hole, they can then feed until they want off of the goat. Goats are the worst animal personality I've ever seen in the entire world. The father wants sex 5 times a day. The baby is born, and if the mother doesn't protect the baby will die because the father is being interfered with in his daily activities. But if the baby survives and becomes a child, the father still dominates the mother, and the child attempts to do the same, but the father keeps beating him up. And if you put food in a plate and the mother goes to eat, the father knocks her away, butts her away, and eats the food. And until he's fed to his liking, everybody else waits. So what you have to do is put 3 plates if you have father, mother, and baby, and you put them wide enough apart so that when the father runs over to the plate the mother is eating, she can run over to his plate and eat there.
Wow.
Or the baby's plate. And the baby will run to the father's plate. You know? They are the closest things to Masons that I can imagine. All they think about is themselves.
Why do you think the goat's nature is like that?
Because you had to have a panther, a cat, that showed it was ready to share, and a goat, number 2, who's never ready to share. So the basic lesson for the child is that some animals are more likely to be helpful than others, and those animals are cats. And those animals have to be compensated for in being given a final destination of paradise, while the goats have to be compensated for by being given a final place of Pacific. And don't think they're going to go out there to go fishing. They're going out on a block of ice that will melt and allow them to drown at a place where the plates of the earth are crisscrossing one on top of the other, and they go down underneath for a few million years. And when they have been completely broken into its component parts, chemically or minerally speaking, then those parts are dispersed all over the world, so they can never come together again. And the parts that are dispersed eventually, billions of years later, come out as part of the liquid in a volcano explosion.
It says here that
that's the definition of hell. And everybody that gets to heaven and has done something like has been done to Jennifer, kidnapping Jennifer, disallowing her citizenship, landed immigrant status, all of that stuff, harassing her all the time from birth until today. Those people are being sentenced to stand in line at the door of the court and that line extends beyond imagination. And for example, I mentioned that if I were to penalize the people who have in fact held back $4,500 in 5 months from me right now, which I have, the court, looking at the preliminary evidence, says $1 equals 1 year. $4,500, which is what they've stolen today. Anyone coming within range of causing that theft, and their ancestors, starting with great-great-grandmother and grandchildren going down to great-great-grandchildren, all of them are sentenced to 4,500 years in line. That's before going to court. Now, in court, they will remember what they saw about how great it is to live in paradise and how terrible it would be to go to the Pacific. And they have to, when their turn comes up, enter the court, and in the court, sit in the audience, which, if I remember correctly, is about 400 souls waiting to be analyzed by the court. And one of them steps forward, goes up on the stage, sits on a chair, and is asked 3 questions, to which his inability to answer scares him, but in the back of him is a large screen that shows the answers to the 3 questions. What did you know? When did you know it? What did you do about it? And then the judge renders a decision based upon looking at the actual events that had occurred for that person. And they are walked to the door of the courtroom and handed them over to me. And they can't budge in any direction except for the direction I lead them, and that's to a red chair where Jennifer is sitting. And she's given a briefing from the court on the reasons for the sentence. And only she has the ability to change that sentence to not as bad a penalty as has been assigned, which is probably hell, or what we call Pacific, to time served, for example. And then I can walk them to the door that leads to paradise. If she disregards any request, then I walk them over to Pacific side. Now, all of that is in Jennifer's hands. The forgiveness part, and all I can say is right now, at this very moment, she is not very forgiving. I wouldn't want to be the person who asks for forgiveness when she finally takes her seat. Right now, she doesn't have to worry about them because they're so far down the line that it'll be a long time before they show up at the court. once they die, mind you. We have nothing to do with life and death. Creation can stop something happening, life and death, but doesn't have to and doesn't often.
Yeah, life and death. Last time not the last time, but a while ago, she made a post that was concerning, I guess, bureaucrats in the U.S.
Yeah.
About, something about the Democrats, I think it was.
Well, Democrats have a much better chance of being bureaucrats than Republicans.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean all Republicans, but it means there's probably a larger portion of Republicans that don't steal because they're rich.
Yeah.
And here, like I told the taxi driver this morning, I said, just imagine you have a town called Fatima or Lourdes or a place in Serbia, and an apparition occurs to children. What happens to those towns? Well, millions of people from around the world come to visit the site. Everybody becomes rich, and therefore nobody has a need to steal. Now we have an opportunity where the other end of the scale, a senior has an apparition. You have a town full of poor people and mediocre wealth people, very few really rich people who don't want any company. And therefore, they don't want to admit that in their riding, in their city, in their suburbs, an apparition occurred, because everybody around them will get rich. And then they won't be kissing their asses as much as they do now. So I was asked by the cell, don't the people of your area, Kempville and Oxford Mills and all that, don't they want to be rich? I said, obviously not. They enjoy the pain of being slaves because they're not the ones that are doing anything to help. Now, if the people of Fatima or Lourdes had done what they do, is disregard what they have heard, half of it their fault for not looking, the other half the media's fault for not reporting, and they're being penalized a lot for all of this. The media is one of the worst penalized groups of people at that decision-making process. But the poor people are not rushing over here and saying, Glenn, is there anything I can do? We know that, this is your fifth year, and we know that when Jennifer was here, she was told if she made a sign with his name on it and put at the front gate, that one day in the next 4 years he would be repaired. Any damage that he had up to that would be repaired. Well, guess what? That happened in Japan last week or the week before? Zozo. The Z in the alphabet means you You've been going in one direction, you stop, you go backwards, down, and start over and going in a different direction. Well, ZZ Top is one of the singers groups that I'm told. I never heard them, but I'm told. And that's what we're talking about. As long as he lives, he will never know that the cell, the pineal cord, and creation fixed him. It's not the doctors that fixed him. It's the guiding hand of the cell and the cord and creation that fixed him. And now he's set to go, and since they can't attack him on his health anymore, or believing that he would never beat Jack Nicklaus's record, you can see how the media is attacking his personality every day, saying that he was only thinking of himself and narcissistic is what they call it, and completely oblivious to any damage he could do to anybody. He would pay his coach, for example, $50,000 a year while he was making millions. And then he was expecting his coach to pay his meals when they were out together. You know? That's what they're saying about him now. Now, creation repaired the part about his health. I'm waiting to see what they're going to do about his personality, because I don't believe your personality is made after you're born. I believe it's a descendant personality from your the genes of your parents. He would have, obviously, male, female from mother and father, but also genetic engineering for the purpose of playing golf. It'd be interesting to watch the duration and to see if he gets to the 3 other tournaments, majors, I think they're called, in order to tie and then surpass Mickelson. But people have a hard time demoting a white man to a black man. And they have a hard time upgrading a black man to a level of a white man. So that's the biggest problem he will have to face. I'm told he's now writing a book to set the thing straight. He's been called stingy by the media and narcissistic. And so it'd be interesting to see if these idiots in the media are left with gaping throats and mouths watching him win more tournaments and finally realize that, you know, the origin of humans are cats. The origin of modern humans are Africans. And whether you're talking about billions of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, or thousands of millions of years ago, You can't change anything there. People were born in Africa as modern humans. They were black. Some migrated to what I believe to be southern India, which at the time was linked to Sri Lanka before the separation of Sri Lanka, which means beautiful island, and eventually went north. And all of the states between those states that used to be Indian and have become states on their own, or anything in the not far, but Middle East group, including Iran and everybody to the Mediterranean, was called Persia. They were all Persians. And if you take a black guy and you remove some of the black, you get brown. And that's what these people are. And when they send what they call original people to live in a country, they're brown. So they don't come from Africa, they come from India or any of those countries later on called Persia, because the Far East moved more along the color of a whitish yellow, whereas we ended up with a reddish white. According to the Indians, that transformation was done in southern Ontario. And it was done, and the first Caucasians were put on rafts and sent down the Mississippi out into the Gulf of Mexico across to North Africa, where from Morocco they made their way into the Middle East as well. And every race in the West was denied the privilege of growing in size and remained basically hunter-foragers, while the cosmetic white people had been made for the job of agriculture. And the agriculture is the strongest weapon that one must have in war. Because if you can't feed your soldiers, they will die, no matter how big their guns are. So that's the history of the world. And that's why white people like me were allowed to grow in numbers in order to take over the power through the use of money in the world. And the worst group among us all are, number one, the gray nuns and blue nuns. Number two, the billionaires. Both of which I wouldn't allow on the farm. The cell needing $1 billion for the project for this farm has set it at $100 million is the maximum that people can donate to that project. Tiger Woods fits in the category by having less than $1 billion. He's somewhere around 800 million. And people between Tiger Woods and $100 million don't need any more cash. And they could help. Could they choose to help? They could deny help should they choose to deny it. And all of that will determine where in the lineup they are when they get to the other side. You know, our role is to begin the project. It was intended when Jennifer was here that the cell would hand over $35,000 as its first payment. As soon as Jennifer was kidnapped and Tom was killed and a destruction of the house occurred by shutting off the hydro, which meant the sump pump wouldn't pump out any water, and everything would shift and begin to fall apart, and rats would run all over the ceiling, digging holes into the ceilings, looking down to see if there's any food in that room, as they did in my bedroom. And then if one was stupid enough to drop down to let the other ones know exactly how much food was there, they'd realize they were in the middle of 20 cats who ate the hell out of them in a matter of an hour, and decided that finding a better place to look for food was the only option left. So since then, I haven't had any rats running through the ceiling, but I've had a piece of the ceiling fall on my head while I tried to go to bed in my former room before I was married. So all of that tells you what I think you need to know and what other people need to know. And cash is always important because cash is what they stole from me, and it was the money I used to feed myself, and Jennifer would feed the animals. Now she has to feed me, and I'm worried always about, when will it all run out for the cats. So that's where I am. Made a big improvement over the last couple of weeks with the tent. Now that I have a bed in it, it solves my problem of cooking in the wintertime or lying on my back in the wintertime to get the bump away. So some people, like, the people of Brockville and Scotland and you two have done more than what is expected of you. But there are millions of people out there that should be participating in some way or the other. Should they choose to disbelieve, that's their business. Until they get, of course, to the other side. Then it's no longer their control. Whether they be billionaires or poor people, if they know what's happening and they choose to disbelieve, their place is not in paradise.
Man, I wish you could get that hernia taken care of, but you don't want to.
No, the doctor would kill me. It wouldn't be his own opinion. He would simply, as in happens with everybody who goes to the hospital in Canada, they have a computer, they type the name and whatever is on the card they give you.
Mm-hmm.
And at the other end comes up, do not resuscitate.
Well, I mean, you
So
could.
if they want a job for the rest of their lives, they better not resuscitate.
They have. I mean, I know billionaires probably have something like that, or rich people. They have like private doctors. Maybe
Yeah.
that could be. If
Yeah.
I had the money for a private doctor, that would be.
Yeah.
Maybe that.
Billionaires don't need to participate in anything. Millionaires are good enough. Billionaires have penance to make before they participate. And most of them inherit the money. But giving to groups who are supposed to take care of the poor is giving to bureaucrats who steal the money to give to bureaucrats.
Yep. You know, they just had one of the people who are running for president, like Sanders and Warren. What they're saying is basically like Warren said, "Oh, I want to have a new health plan that will cost trillions and trillions of dollars."
Yeah, yeah. By the way, the name I was looking for is Sitka.
Sitka.
In Alaska, Sitka in Russia, and Sitka spruce trees here.
Mm-hmm. That's the place in Alaska.
And if you translate Sitka from Russian into English, it's guardian angel, which is what I call the two from Brockville, the two from Scotland, and the two from New York.
Why are we coming in twos?
Seems to be a defense against ghosts. You're the better twos, the new twos. Number 2 is number 1 now because number 1 went underground and became an ant.
1.
And rats became bats, that became cats, that became lions. Well, the ants are at the mantle.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to get darker sooner now because we pushed the clocks back, I think, right? I think it was this morning, right?
What was that?
I think now you're going to have less time for light. Because we pushed the clocks back. What was it, yesterday morning?
Yeah.
This morning.
Yeah, so I don't want to steal all your daylight that you have, you know.
Yeah.
Try to keep that
time
in mind.
for me to go.
Yeah.
Talk to you people.
Yeah.
Another time.
I'll try to call soon.
Bye, Danny. Bye, Jared. Bye, everybody listening.
All right.
All right.